There was a man in a village who kept saying the same thing. One day I will start the business. One day I will travel. One day I will write the book. One day I will tell her how I feel. One day I will become the person I know I can be. The strange thing was that nobody doubted him because he was intelligent, hardworking, capable, the kind of person everyone assumed would eventually do great things, including himself, especially himself. Whenever anyone questioned him, he always had a reasonable answer. The timing isn't right yet. I need more money. I need more experience. I need to prepare properly. I need to be ready. And because the reasons sounded sensible, nobody argued. Years passed. The man grew older. The business remained an idea. The book remained unwritten. The journey remained unplanned. The conversation remained unspoken, but the phrase survived. One day, the phrase became so common that people almost stopped hearing it. It was simply part of who he was. Then one evening, an old monk arrived in the village. The monk stayed for several days. People visited him with questions. Questions about life, questions about suffering, questions about purpose. Eventually the man went too. He sat before the monk and explained his frustrations. I know I am capable of more, he said. I know I have potential. I know there is something bigger waiting for me. But somehow I never seem to begin. The monk listened quietly. Then he asked a strange question. How old are you? 42, the man replied. And how old were you when you first started saying one day? The man laughed. Probably 20. The monk nodded. So for 22 years you have been standing on the edge of your life waiting for permission to enter it. The man frowned. That isn't fair. I have responsibilities, obligations, real-world limitations. The monk agreed. Of course you do. Everyone does. Then the monk pointed toward a tree outside the temple. Do you see that tree? The man nodded. 22 years ago, that tree was a sapling, small enough to step over. Today it is taller than both of us. The monk paused. The tree did not wait until conditions were perfect. The seasons were not always favorable. The weather was not always kind. Some years were dry. Some years were harsh. It grew anyway. The man was quiet. The monk continued. There is a strange illusion that traps many intelligent people. They believe action comes after confidence, after certainty, after readiness. But readiness is often created by action itself. The man thought about this for a long time. Then he returned home. For several days he could not stop thinking about the tree, or the 22 years. 22 years. The number disturbed him, because it sounded different when someone else said it. 22 years was not a delay. It was a lifetime. For the first time he began calculating. 22 years earlier he had wanted to write a book. If he had written 1 page a day, the calculation made him uncomfortable. 22 years earlier he had wanted to start a business. If he had spent even 1 hour a day learning, the calculation made him more uncomfortable. 22 years earlier he had wanted to travel. If he had saved a small amount every week, he stopped doing the calculations. Not because they were wrong, because they were painful. The next morning he returned to the monk. I think I've wasted my life, he said. The monk shook his head. No, you have wasted some time. Those are not the same thing. The man looked relieved. Then the monk continued. But if you use that realization to continue waiting, then you will waste the rest. The man laughed despite himself. The monk smiled. Then he picked up a small clay cup. Imagine this cup represents your life. The monk filled it halfway with water. This is what has already happened. You cannot pour it back into the pitcher. You cannot relive it. You cannot renegotiate it. You cannot start 22 years ago. The monk paused. Then he pointed to the empty space remaining in the cup. But this part still belongs to you. The man stared at the cup. Most people spend so much time mourning the water that has already been poured. that they never use the space that remains. For several weeks, the man thought about the cup, the tree, the number, the phrase, one day. Eventually, he realized something. One day was not a plan. It was a hiding place, a beautiful hiding place. Comfortable, reasonable, socially acceptable, but still a hiding place, because one day never arrives. There is only today, disguised as ordinary. The next morning he did something that seemed almost absurdly small. He wrote one page, just one. Not because he felt inspired, not because he suddenly believed in himself, not because he knew it would succeed. He wrote one page because it was easier than writing a book. The following day he wrote another. Some days the pages were terrible. Some days they were decent. A few were good. But that was not the point. The point was that something had shifted. He was no longer waiting. Months later he started the business. Not perfectly, not brilliantly, messily, the way most worthwhile things begin. Years later, he finally took the journey he had imagined for decades, and one evening he found himself sitting beneath the same tree the monk had pointed to. The tree was larger now, so was he. Not older, larger, internally. The way people become larger when they stop standing on the edge of their own lives. A young villager approached him. The young man had heard stories. He knew the older man had become successful, wise, respected, and he wanted advice. What was the secret? The young man asked. The older man smiled. Then he said something unexpected. I stopped saying one day. The young man laughed. No, really. What changed everything? The older man looked toward the horizon. Then he answered. One day I realized that the life I was waiting to begin had already started, and it wasn't waiting for me. The young man became quiet. The older man continued. You do not need more time before you begin living. You are already spending the time. The question is whether you are spending it on waiting or living. Here is the question this story leaves with you. What is your one day? You know exactly what it is. A conversation, a goal, a dream, a decision, a risk, something you keep pushing into the future. Something that seems important enough to think about constantly, but not important enough to start today. And perhaps your reasons are valid. Many of them probably are. But ask yourself something honestly. How many years have those reasons existed? 1, 5, 10, 20? Because there is a point at which waiting stops being preparation and becomes avoidance. The tree outside the temple never waited for the perfect season. The seasons came and went, and it grew anyway. Maybe that is the lesson. Maybe life is not asking you to be ready. Maybe life is asking you to begin. Not next year. Not when conditions improve. Not when confidence arrives. Today, with whatever you have. Exactly where you are. Because one day is a beautiful place to visit, but it is a terrible place to live. And the longer you stay there, the more of your life passes by without you.